I'm 32, single, and apparently the family disappointment. That's what I learned at my own birthday dinner 3 months ago when my mother looked at me blowing out candles and told everyone in the restaurant that this was another year of me disappointing everyone who ever met me. Let me back up because I know that sounds insane. My family has always had this thing about success. Dad's a financial advisor. Mom worked in real estate until she retired. My sister Lily married a lawyer. And somehow I became the black sheep for choosing to work in IT instead of something they considered prestigious. I make decent money, own my apartment outright, have a solid career, but to them, I'm just the guy who didn't become a doctor or marry someone impressive enough to brag about at their country club. The tension had been building for years. Every family gathering turned into subtle digs about my life choices. Why wasn't I married yet? Why didn't I have kids? Didn't I want to give them grandchildren? When was I going to do something meaningful with my life? I stopped going to most events 2 years ago because I was tired of being their punching bag, but Mom guilted me into this birthday dinner by saying it had been so long since we all got together and she missed me. I should have known better. We met at this nice steakhouse on a Thursday evening. Mom, Dad, Lily, her husband Edward, and their 8-year-old daughter Martha. I got there first, waited at the table, and tried to tell myself it would be fine. Maybe they'd actually be nice for once. Maybe turning 32 would somehow magically make them respect me. Dinner started normal enough. Polite conversation about work and weather. Then Mom ordered cake from the waiter, and I figured, okay, here comes the awkward birthday song. I can handle that. The waiter brought it out, lit the candles, and I was about to blow them out when Mom said it, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Another year of disappointing everyone who ever met you. Just like that, casual. Like she was commenting on the weather. I froze with my mouth open, ready to blow out the candles. Dad checked his watch and announced we'd stayed an hour, and that was more than I deserved. Lily was recording the whole thing on her phone, grinning, and then she slid this wrapped box across the table to me. I opened it. Empty. Completely empty. She told me that's what I'd given this family. Nothing. And everyone at the table laughed. Then little Martha pulled out this folded piece of paper and started reading. Her mother had helped her write a list of reasons why she didn't like her uncle. I was boring. I didn't have a cool job. I didn't have a wife or kids. I played video games like a child. Her friends' uncles were better. She read the whole thing in that practiced way kids do when they've rehearsed something. And when she finished, everyone clapped. My own niece got applause for publicly trashing me. My cousin Oscar was at a nearby table. I hadn't even noticed him there. And he called over that my ex-girlfriend Eileen had reached out to him on social media last week to mention that even my dog preferred her new boyfriend. They dated after we broke up, and apparently she couldn't resist twisting that knife. The dog thing wasn't even true. We never had a dog together, but it got more laughs. Mom wrapped it up by telling me to blow out the candles and wish to be someone else, because it was my only hope. Dad was still laughing, saying they'd only come for the free food, not for me. Everyone sat there grinning like this was the funniest thing they'd ever witnessed. I didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't give them the satisfaction. I pulled out my wallet, left $200 cash on the table to cover the entire bill and a generous tip, stood up, and walked out. Nobody followed me. I heard Lily call out something about me being too sensitive as I left, but I just kept walking. I drove home in complete silence, parked in my building's garage, went up to my apartment, sat on my couch, and I started planning. See, here's what my family never understood about me. I'm not unsuccessful or pathetic or any of the things they've spent years telling me I am. I own my 2-bedroom apartment in a nice building, paid off, no mortgage. I've got savings. I'm a senior network security analyst, and I'm good at my job. Real good. The kind of good where I understand systems, dependencies, and exactly how things connect. And I've been angry for a long time. Not sad, not hurt, angry. Every family gathering where they made me the joke I remembered. Every comment about my life choices, I cataloged. I'd already been pulling back from them for 2 years, but I'd done it gradually, strategically, while quietly making sure I knew exactly what leverage I had. My parents live in a house I helped them buy. Not like I gave them money for a down payment. I mean, I bought the house. 5 years ago, they were in financial trouble, bad investments, and they were going to lose their home. Dad's too proud to admit he screwed up, so he came to me privately, desperate, begging. I bought their house outright and put it in my name. We had an agreement, written and notarized, that they'd pay me monthly rent equivalent to what a mortgage would be, and after 10 years, I'd transfer the deed to them. They've been paying me, sure, but that house is legally mine. The deed has my name on it. They're technically my tenants. Lily and Edward's situation is even better. 2 years ago, Edward got fired from his law firm for reasons he won't talk about, but I'm pretty sure involved an ethics complaint. They were drowning. Lily called me crying, said they were going to lose everything. Could I please help? I refinanced their house, used my credit and my name, saved them from foreclosure. They make payments to me. I make the actual mortgage payments to the bank. On paper, I'm a co-owner of their property. They need my signature to sell it. They need my cooperation for basically any major financial decision involving that house. Mom's retirement money comes from investments Dad managed, and he managed them poorly. She's got a small account that she checks regularly, but most of her actual retirement income comes from a trust I helped them set up 3 years ago when they were panicking about their financial future. I'm the trustee. I don't control the money exactly, but I control access to it. And there are stipulations about distributions that I helped write. And the best part? They have no idea how interconnected all of this is. They think I just helped them out of family obligation, that I'm too weak to ever do anything about it. They think I'm the loser who won't stand up for himself. I spent the week after that birthday dinner going through every document, every contract, every agreement, making notes, checking what's legal, what's enforceable, what I can do without breaking any laws. I wasn't sure when I'd use this information, but I knew I'd been preparing for something like this for years. The messages started 2 days after the dinner. Mom texting that I'd embarrassed them by walking out, that I needed to learn to take a joke. Lily sending me the video she'd recorded, asking if I wanted a copy for my memories. Dad calling to say I owed them an apology for making a scene. I didn't respond to any of it. Then last week, a month after the birthday disaster, my building's front desk called up to my apartment. I had visitors in the lobby who were refusing to leave. All of them. Mom, Dad, Lily, Edward, even Martha. The desk guy said they'd been there for 20 minutes demanding to come up, getting increasingly upset, and he'd told them no because they weren't on my approved visitor list, but they wouldn't leave. I told him to call the police if they didn't leave in 5 minutes. He called back 3 minutes later saying they'd finally gone, but they'd left notes taped to the lobby doors. I went down that night after they were gone and collected the notes. 5 different handwritten letters, all saying basically the same thing. They needed to explain. It was just a joke. Family is forever. They loved me. Please call them back. Please let them explain. Why was I being so cruel? It had been a month. This was ridiculous. They were worried about me. They needed to talk. Not one single apology. Not one acknowledgement that what they did was wrong. Just justifications and demands that I get over it. I threw the notes away and went back upstairs. The next morning, I filed formal eviction proceedings against my parents. Completely legal, completely by the book. They've been paying rent, sure, but the lease agreement includes a clause about maintaining respectful communication with the landlord, their harassment at my building, their refusal to leave when asked. That violated the lease terms. I have witnesses, building security footage, documentation. The eviction notice will be delivered this week. They've got 30 days. For Lily and Edward, I contacted the mortgage company and informed them I'd be reevaluating my position as co-signer and co-owner. I requested a full property assessment and indicated I might be interested in forcing a sale of the property to recover my investment. Also completely legal. Also something they can't stop because I'm on the deed. And for Mom's trust, I scheduled a meeting with the financial advisor who manages it to discuss restructuring the distribution schedule based on recent family circumstances and concerns about the beneficiary's decision-making capabilities. I haven't told them any of this yet. They still think I'm just not answering their calls. Yesterday, they showed up at my apartment building again. This time, they somehow got past the front desk. I'm guessing they followed another resident in, and they were actually in my hallway. All of them, sitting on the floor outside my door. I have a video doorbell so I could see them on my phone before I even got home from work. Mom was crying. Dad looked furious. Lily was on her phone. Edward was pacing. Martha was sitting against the wall looking confused and tired. They'd been there for hours based on the timestamp. I called building security from my car in the parking garage. Told them I had trespassers outside my apartment who had bypassed the front desk. They sent someone up, made my family leave, and added an incident report to their file. That's 3 documented harassment incidents now. My lawyer says that's more than enough. I waited in my car for 2 hours until I was absolutely sure they were gone. Went up, found more notes shoved under my door. These were different, desperate, talking about how everything was falling apart. They'd gotten legal notices. They didn't understand why. They needed help. They needed to talk to me, please. They were family. Family. How could I do this to them? Still no apology. Still no acknowledgement. Just panic because now they're facing real consequences and they can't figure out how I'm connected to all of it yet. They don't realize I'm the landlord on the eviction notice because I set up that rental agreement through an LLC 5 years ago. They don't know I'm the one who contacted the mortgage company because that communication went through my lawyer. They don't know about the trust restructuring because that's between me and the advisor right now. They just know their world is suddenly collapsing and the timing is suspicious, but they can't prove anything. I'm not breaking any laws. I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm just enforcing agreements they signed, exercising rights I legally have, and protecting myself from people who have spent years treating me like garbage. They wanted me to be someone else. They're about to find out exactly who I actually am. The eviction notice gets delivered tomorrow. I'm very curious to see how long it takes them to connect the dots. Update 1. So the eviction notice got delivered on Friday morning. My parents received it at 9 a.m. according to the delivery confirmation. By 9:47 a.m., my phone had 63 missed calls. 63. All from different combinations of Mom, Dad, and Lily. I was in a meeting at work and had my phone on silent, and when I checked it during my lunch break, the screen was just filled with notifications. The voicemails were something else. I saved all of them because my lawyer said to document everything. Mom's first message was confused, asking if I knew anything about an eviction notice they'd received. Did I know who owned their house now because the name on the notice was some LLC they didn't recognize? By message 5, she was crying, begging me to call her back. By message 10, she was screaming that I needed to fix this, that I had connections, that I knew people, that I had to help them figure out who was doing this to them. Dad's messages went from demanding, I call him back immediately, to threatening to show up at my workplace if I didn't respond. Lily left 12 messages, and every single one was her talking fast, almost manic, about how she'd gotten a letter from their mortgage company about a possible foreclosure proceeding, and did I have any idea what was happening because this had to be connected somehow. I didn't call any of them back. Instead, I forwarded all the voicemails to my lawyer and asked him to add them to the harassment documentation. Here's what I didn't mention in my first post, because honestly, I'm still processing how deep this goes. When I set up these financial arrangements with my family years ago, I wasn't thinking about revenge yet. I was genuinely trying to help, but I was also careful, really careful. Every contract, every agreement, every piece of paperwork went through a lawyer. Everything was documented. Everything was legitimate. I made sure of that because even back then, some part of me knew my family would eventually turn on me for being the disappointing son who dared to have money when they needed it. The house situation with my parents is airtight. I bought it outright when they were facing foreclosure 5 years ago. Paid cash, got the deed in my name, set up the rental agreement through an LLC I created specifically for this purpose. They've been paying rent to that LLC every month, and the paperwork clearly states I'm the landlord. They signed it. They knew the terms. But they were so desperate and embarrassed about needing help from their failure son that they never told anyone else in the family about the arrangement. As far as everyone knew, they still owned their house. So when that eviction notice arrived with the LLC name on it, they genuinely didn't make the connection. Not at first. Saturday morning, I woke up to someone pounding on my apartment door. Not knocking, pounding, over and over. I checked my video doorbell and it was Dad. Just Dad this time. Red-faced, sweating, looking absolutely unhinged. He was yelling through the door that he knew I was in there, that my car was in the garage, that I needed to open up right now. I called building security. They came up, told him to leave. He refused. Started arguing with the security guard, saying I was his son and he had a right to speak to me. The guard explained that, no, actually, he didn't have any rights here because this was private property and I didn't want him here. Dad tried to push past the guard to get to my door. They called the police. I watched the whole thing on my phone. The cops showed up, talked to Dad, talked to the security guard, checked the previous incident reports. They told Dad he needed to leave and not come back or he'd be arrested for trespassing. He left, but not before yelling at my door one more time that I was going to regret this, that family doesn't abandon family, that I was making the biggest mistake of my life. The police took a report. That's incident number 4 in building security system. My lawyer is thrilled because it's building a pattern of harassment that makes everything else I'm doing look completely justified. Sunday, I drove out to the gym across town where I work out, specifically because it's nowhere near my family and I needed to clear my head. I was on the treadmill when my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. The message said it was Edward, Lily's husband, and he needed to talk to me urgently about a legal matter. He must have gotten a new number or borrowed someone's phone because I'd blocked his regular number months ago along with everyone else's. I didn't respond, but I screenshotted it and sent it to my lawyer. 20 minutes later, another text from a different unknown number. This one was Lily. She said they'd figured it out. They knew what I'd done. They knew about the house, about their mortgage, about everything. She said I was destroying their lives over a stupid birthday joke, and did I really want to be responsible for making my niece homeless? That one made me actually angry enough that I had to stop running and go sit in my car for a while. Using Martha like that, acting like I'm the villain for enforcing legal agreements they signed, acting like humiliating me in public, planning it out, having an 8-year-old read a prepared speech about how much she dislikes me. That was just a joke, but me protecting myself is somehow evil. I blocked both numbers and went home. Monday, I had a meeting with the financial advisor who manages Mom's trust. I'd asked for this meeting 2 weeks ago, right after the birthday dinner, but he'd been out of town and Monday was his first availability. We sat in his office and I laid out my concerns. My mother has been displaying increasingly erratic behavior. The trust was set up to provide her with stable retirement income, but I'm worried about her judgment, the harassment, the showing up at my building multiple times, the voicemails that range from crying to screaming. I played him a few of the voicemails, asked him professionally, as the trustee, what options I had to protect the trust assets. He listened to everything, reviewed the trust documents. Then he explained what I already knew but wanted him to say officially. As trustee, I have the authority to modify distribution schedules if I believe the beneficiary's judgment is compromised or if there are concerns about financial exploitation. I can't take the money away from her, it's her trust. But I can control when and how she receives it. We agreed to implement a new distribution structure. Instead of monthly payments, the trust will now make quarterly payments. Instead of direct deposits to her account, payments will be made to verified vendors for specific expenses like utilities, property taxes, insurance. Mom will have to submit requests for additional funds with documentation of what the money is for. It's not punishment, it's protection. That's what the documentation says. Protection of the trust assets and the beneficiary's long-term interests. The advisor said he'd send her a letter explaining the changes by end of week. I went back to work and tried to focus on my actual job. I had a major project deadline, and I'd been letting all this family drama distract me too much. But around 3 in the afternoon, building security called my work line. They never call my work line. I stepped out of the office to take it. Lily and Edward were in my building lobby again. They'd shown up with Martha this time. They had her. They were using her. The security guy said they were refusing to leave, saying they needed to see me, that it was a family emergency involving the child. They were claiming Martha was sick and needed her uncle. He wanted to know if this was legitimate or if he should call the police again. I told him Martha has 2 parents standing right there with her. If she's sick, they can take her to a doctor. They're not coming up to my apartment, and yes, call the police if they don't leave. He called back 10 minutes later. They'd left when he mentioned police, but Martha had been crying. He sounded uncomfortable about it, like he felt bad for the kid. I told him I appreciated him following the building policies and protecting residents' privacy. That evening, I got an Instagram DM from someone I didn't know. The profile picture was Martha. The account was clearly brand new, created that day. The message said, "Uncle Reese, it's Martha. Mommy helped me make this account so I could talk to you. Why won't you see us? Did I do something wrong? I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. Please talk to Mommy and Daddy. They're really sad and Mommy keeps crying. I don't understand what's happening. Can we please see you? I miss you." I stared at that message for a long time. They'd created a fake account for their 8-year-old daughter to manipulate me. They'd coached her on what to say. They were using a child as a weapon after using that same child to humiliate me publicly. I reported the account for impersonation and child safety concerns, then blocked it. Tuesday morning, I met with my lawyer for 2 hours. We went over everything. The eviction proceedings are moving forward exactly as planned. My parents have 30 days from the notice delivery date, which means they need to be out by mid-December. My lawyer filed the formal foreclosure initiation paperwork with the mortgage company regarding Lily and Edward's house. This doesn't mean immediate foreclosure. It means we're starting the legal process that could lead to foreclosure or forced sale, if we choose to pursue it. It's a warning shot. The trust restructuring is documented and legal, and there's nothing Mom can do about it because I'm the trustee, and I'm acting within my authority. My lawyer asked me if I was sure I wanted to push this far. He said what I'm doing is completely legal, but it's also nuclear. Once the eviction is complete, once the foreclosure process is formally initiated, there's no easy way back from that. Relationships will be permanently destroyed. Family will be gone. Was I prepared for that? I told him I'd been preparing for 2 years. That birthday dinner was just the final confirmation that I'd been right to protect myself. That these people weren't family. They were people who shared my DNA and had spent my entire adult life telling me I wasn't good enough, while simultaneously taking my money when they needed it. He nodded and said he'd continue processing everything. Wednesday afternoon, I was leaving work when I saw Mom sitting in her car in the parking lot. My work parking lot. She'd somehow figured out where I work, which isn't that hard since I have a LinkedIn profile, but still. She'd driven 40 minutes to sit there waiting for me. When she saw me walking to my car, she got out and started coming toward me. I stopped walking and just stood there. Let her come to me. She looked terrible. Hair a mess, no makeup, wearing sweatpants. Mom hasn't left the house in sweatpants in probably 20 years. She prides herself on always looking put together. She started talking before she even reached me, saying, please, just please listen. They got the letter about the trust. She doesn't understand what's happening. The house, the trust, Lily's mortgage. It's all happening at once. They need help. They need me. She knows the birthday dinner went too far. She knows it was wrong. But this response is crazy. This is destroying everything. Dad is having chest pains from the stress. Lily is barely sleeping. Martha keeps asking why everyone is so upset. This is killing them all. I asked her if she was apologizing. She stopped mid-sentence. Said what? I repeated it. Are you apologizing for the birthday dinner? For the years of treating me like garbage? For making me the family joke? For using an 8-year-old to publicly humiliate me? She said this wasn't about that anymore. This was about our family falling apart. This was about me using money to hurt people. This was about me being vindictive and cruel. I told her the eviction stands. The foreclosure process continues. The trust restructuring is final. If she came to my workplace again, I'd file for a restraining order. Then I got in my car and drove away while she stood there in the parking lot. Thursday morning, the financial advisor's office sent the formal letter to Mom about the trust changes. I got a copy. Very professional, very clear. New distribution structure effective immediately. Quarterly payments instead of monthly. Vendor payments instead of direct deposits. Request process for additional funds. All framed as protective measures for her benefit. My phone started ringing again within an hour of that letter being delivered. I didn't answer. I was done answering. Friday evening, yesterday, I came home from dinner with a friend to find them all in my hallway again. All of them. Mom, Dad, Lily, Edward. No Martha this time, probably because they realized using her wasn't working. They'd somehow gotten past building security again, and they were sitting outside my door. When they saw me coming down the hallway, Dad stood up and started walking toward me. He said we needed to talk, that I couldn't avoid them forever, that they deserved answers. I kept my phone out and my finger over the emergency call button, told them they were trespassing and needed to leave immediately. Lily stood up and said they weren't leaving until I explained what the hell I was doing, that their house was at risk, Mom's money was frozen, my parents were being evicted, and all of this started right after that dinner. She knew it was me. She knew I was behind it. She wanted to know how I was doing this and why. I thought I had the right. I looked at all 4 of them. Dad trying to look intimidating. Mom crying again. Lily furious. Edward just standing there looking exhausted and defeated. And I told them the truth. I told them I own their house. Bought it 5 years ago when they were going to lose it. I'm the landlord. I'm the one evicting them. The LLC they didn't recognize? That's mine. The rental agreement they've been paying into for 5 years. That's their lease with me. They're being evicted for violating lease terms regarding harassment and respectful communication with the landlord. I told Lily and Edward I co-signed and refinanced their mortgage. I'm on their deed. I'm initiating foreclosure proceedings because I'm reevaluating my financial relationship with people who publicly humiliate me. They can either buy me out of my share of the property or we force a sale. Their choice. I told Mom I'm the trustee of her retirement trust. Always have been. Set it up 3 years ago when they were panicking about money. I'm restructuring distributions because her behavior over the past month has shown concerning judgment issues. The trust documents give me that authority. I'm using it. I told all of them that every single thing I'm doing is legal. Every document was signed by them. Every agreement was their choice. I didn't force them into anything. They came to me desperate for help and I gave it. Now they're facing consequences for treating me like garbage while living on my money. Dad went silent. Mom started crying harder. Lily's face went white. Edward actually sat down on the floor. Then Lily said I couldn't do this. There had to be something illegal about it. You can't just evict your own parents. You can't just take someone's house. There were laws. There were protections. I told her to get a lawyer then. Fight me in court. Contest the eviction. Contest the foreclosure. Argue that the trust restructuring is inappropriate. But she should know that I've had lawyers reviewing every single document for weeks, and everything is airtight. Everything I'm doing is within my legal rights. I'm just enforcing agreements they signed. Security showed up then because I'd texted them when I first saw my family in the hallway. They made everyone leave. My family went quietly this time, probably in shock. I went into my apartment and sat on my couch in the dark for 2 hours, just sat there. This morning I woke up to an email from my lawyer. My parents filed a response to the eviction claiming duress and fraud in the original rental agreement. They're arguing they didn't understand what they were signing 5 years ago, and that I took advantage of them during a financial crisis. It's a weak argument, but it means this is going to court. Lily and Edward hired a lawyer, too. They're arguing that my co-ownership of their house was meant to be temporary, that there was an implied agreement I'd remove myself from the deed once their finances stabilized, and that forcing a sale now is acting in bad faith. My lawyer says both arguments are unlikely to succeed, but it's going to get messy. Court dates, depositions, documentation review. It's going to cost them legal fees they can't afford. It's going to drag out for months. I told him to proceed with everything. No settlements, no compromises. We fight every single challenge they raise. And honestly, I'm not even satisfied yet. They're scrambling. They're panicking. But they're still trying to fight me. They still think they can win. They still haven't actually apologized. So I'm done being defensive. I'm ready to escalate. Update 2. Court date for the eviction hearing is set for January 15th. That's 7 weeks away, and my parents are still living in my house, still paying rent to the LLC like nothing's changed, while their lawyer argues they signed the rental agreement under duress. My lawyer says their case is weak, but they're dragging it out as long as possible, which I expected. What I didn't expect was what came out during the preliminary documentation review. My parents' lawyer requested all financial records related to the house purchase and rental agreement. Standard discovery stuff. My lawyer provided everything because we've got nothing to hide. Every transaction is documented, every payment recorded, every agreement properly notarized. But then their lawyer also requested my parents' personal financial records from the time period when I bought the house, trying to prove they were too financially distressed to understand what they were signing. That's when things got interesting. Going through their old bank statements from 5 years ago, my lawyer found something, a pattern of payments to Lily. Large payments. We're talking $2,000 here, $1,500 there, $3,000 the next month. Consistent payments over a 2-year period starting about 7 years ago and ending right around the time I bought my parents' house. Total amount transferred to Lily during those 2 years was over $60,000. I didn't know about this. Nobody ever mentioned it. And the timing was fascinating because 7 years ago was when I'd first started making real money in my career, when I'd gotten promoted to senior analyst and my salary jumped significantly. It was also right around the time the family dynamics shifted and I became the disappointing son instead of just the quiet middle kid. I asked my lawyer to dig deeper into Lily and Edward's finances from that same time period since we're in discovery for their foreclosure case too. Turns out 7 years ago, Edward was working at a big law firm making great money. They had a nice house, new cars, took expensive vacations. Then 6 years ago, Edward left that firm, and there's a gap in his employment history of about 8 months before he started at a much smaller firm, making significantly less money. I started putting pieces together. My parents were sending Lily money during the exact period when she and Edward should have been financially stable. Then, Edward's career imploded. Then my parents suddenly had a financial crisis bad enough that they needed me to buy their house. And somewhere in all of that, I transformed from regular family member to family failure in their eyes. I called my lawyer and asked him to request Edward's employment termination records from his old firm as part of the discovery process. It's a long shot because firms usually don't disclose that stuff. But given that we're in active litigation involving Edward's finances and he's claiming hardship, there might be grounds to compel it. While all this legal maneuvering was happening, the family harassment reached new levels. They figured out where I get my car serviced. I dropped my Audi off on a Monday morning for routine maintenance, and when I came back that afternoon to pick it up, Mom was sitting in the waiting area, just sitting there. She'd apparently been there for 3 hours waiting for me to show up. The service advisor looked uncomfortable when I walked in. Mom stood up immediately and started talking. She said they needed to settle this outside of court. The legal fees were destroying them. Dad had to take out a loan just to pay their lawyer's retainer. They couldn't afford to fight me, but they also couldn't afford to lose their house. She was begging me to be reasonable, to remember that she's my mother, that she raised me, that family means something. I asked her again if she was apologizing for the birthday dinner. She got frustrated, said I was being ridiculous, holding on to one bad night like it justified all of this. That yes, maybe they went too far with the joke, but this retaliation was insane. Did I really want to make my own mother homeless? Did I really want to destroy my sister's life? What kind of person does that overhurt feelings? I told her the kind of person who spent 32 years being told he wasn't good enough, the kind of person who made something of himself despite constant criticism and contempt, the kind of person who helped his family financially over and over again and got public humiliation as a thank you. I told her I was exactly the kind of person she and Dad raised me to be, someone who protects himself and doesn't let people take advantage of him. She started crying again, said I was twisting everything. They never meant to make me feel that way. They were proud of me. They just wanted me to reach my full potential. The criticism was meant to motivate me, not hurt me. And the birthday dinner was Lily's idea anyway. She'd planned the whole thing, and Mom had just gone along with it because it seemed funny at the time, and she didn't realize how cruel it would sound out loud. That was new information. I asked her to explain exactly what she meant by Lily planning it. Mom said Lily had called her 2 weeks before my birthday and suggested they do something to shake me up. According to Lily, I'd been distant and cold to the family for years, and I needed a wake-up call to remind me that family dynamics matter. Lily thought if they all participated in roasting me a bit at dinner, I'd see how isolated I'd become, and it would motivate me to engage more with everyone. Mom admitted she'd been hesitant, but Dad thought it was funny, and Lily insisted it would work, so they'd planned it, rehearsed it. Lily wrote Martha's speech. They coordinated with Oscar to make the comment about my ex. The empty gift box was Lily's idea. Every single element of that dinner was premeditated and designed to humiliate me into compliance. I asked Mom why they thought humiliation would make me want to be closer to them. She didn't have an answer for that. Just kept saying it wasn't supposed to be that mean. It was supposed to be funny family teasing. They didn't realize how it would come across. But I'd left so abruptly and then refused to talk to them, and now everything was falling apart, and couldn't I see they were sorry? I pointed out that she still hadn't actually said the words, "I'm sorry." She got angry then, said I was being pedantic, that she was standing there begging, and that should be enough, that I was being cruel and vindictive, and I'd changed into someone she didn't recognize. Where was the sweet kid who always tried to help everyone? Where was the son who cared about his family? I told her that son died in a restaurant 3 months ago while his family applauded an 8-year-old reading a list of his failures. Then I took my car keys from the service advisor and left while Mom was still standing there. That evening, I got a Facebook message from Oscar, the cousin who'd made the comment about my ex at the dinner. We're not close, never have been, but apparently he'd heard about the legal situation from Lily. His message was long and rambling, but the gist was that he felt terrible about his part in the birthday dinner. Lily had contacted him a few days before and asked him to be at the restaurant and make that comment about Eileen. She'd told him it was all in good fun and that I'd think it was funny. He didn't realize it was part of a coordinated attack until later, and now he felt like he'd been used to hurt someone. He said he wasn't taking sides in the legal stuff, but he wanted me to know that Lily had orchestrated the whole dinner. She'd recruited everyone, told them what to say, positioned it as tough love that would help me. Oscar said he should have questioned it more, but family dynamics are weird, and when Lily presents something as helping someone, you tend to just go along with it. I thanked him for the information and asked if he'd be willing to provide a statement about that to my lawyer. He said he didn't want to get involved in court, but I could tell people what he'd told me. I screenshotted the entire conversation anyway. The next day, I had a deposition for Lily and Edward's foreclosure case. We all sat in my lawyer's conference room, me and my lawyer on one side, Lily and Edward and their lawyer on the other. The court reporter was there recording everything. This was the first time I'd been in the same room with Lily since that hallway confrontation at my apartment. She looked awful. Hair pulled back, no makeup, wearing clothes that looked like she'd slept in them. Edward looked worse. He'd lost weight. He kept fidgeting with his pen and wouldn't make eye contact with anyone. Their lawyer started questioning me about the mortgage refinance arrangement. When did I agree to co-sign? What were the terms discussed? Did I ever explicitly tell Lily and Edward that my co-ownership was temporary? Did I ever promise to remove myself from the deed? I answered everything truthfully. They came to me in crisis. I helped them by refinancing with my credit and my money. The terms were clearly stated in the mortgage documents. Nothing was ever discussed about temporary arrangements. I'm a legal co-owner with all the rights that entails. If they wanted different terms, they should have negotiated them before signing. Their lawyer tried a different angle. Wasn't I taking advantage of family members in distress? Wasn't the power imbalance inherent in that situation problematic? Didn't I have a moral obligation to consider their well-being before pursuing foreclosure? My lawyer objected, but I answered anyway. I said I helped family members who needed it and asked for nothing except that they treat me with basic respect. They failed to do that. Now I'm exercising my legal rights as a property co-owner. Their current distress is a result of their own choices. Then, their lawyer asked about the birthday dinner. My lawyer objected immediately, said it was irrelevant to the foreclosure case. Their lawyer argued it was relevant to establishing a pattern of vindictive behavior on my part. The court reporter kept typing while the lawyers argued back and forth for 10 minutes. Finally, my lawyer said, "Fine. Ask your questions, but we're noting the objection for the record." Their lawyer asked me to describe what happened at the birthday dinner. I went through it. Every detail, every comment. The empty box, Martha's speech, Oscar's participation, the applause. All of it recorded in official deposition testimony now. Then she asked if I'd initiated the current legal action specifically because of that dinner. I said no. I initiated legal actions because their behavior at that dinner and afterward demonstrated a pattern of disrespect and harassment that made continuing our financial relationships untenable. The dinner was a symptom of deeper issues that had existed for years. It was simply the final evidence I needed to confirm that protecting my financial interests was necessary. She asked if I considered my actions proportionate to the offense. My lawyer objected. I answered anyway. I said I considered my actions proportionate to years of being treated as lesser than, to being the family bank when they needed money but the family joke otherwise, to being publicly humiliated by people I'd helped save from financial ruin, to having an 8-year-old weaponized against me. Yes, I considered enforcing legal agreements I have every right to enforce to be proportionate. Lily started crying, right there in the deposition. Her lawyer called for a break. We all sat there awkwardly while Lily sobbed and Edward put his arm around her and their lawyer tried to compose herself. When we resumed, their lawyer asked me directly if there was any scenario where I'd consider stopping the foreclosure proceedings. I looked at Lily. She was staring at the table. I said yes, there was one scenario. They could buy out my share of the property at current market value. I'd have the house appraised, calculate my percentage of equity, and they could pay me that amount to remove me from the deed. Then they could do whatever they want with their house. Their lawyer asked what amount I estimated that would be. My lawyer interjected that we'd provide a formal number after getting a professional appraisal, but I said I'd answer the question. Based on their purchase price and the refinance amount and current market conditions in their area, I estimated my share of the equity to be somewhere between $90,000 and $120,000. Edward put his head in his hands. Their lawyer said that was an impossible amount for her clients to produce. I said then, we proceed with foreclosure and forced sale and split the proceeds according to ownership percentages. The deposition ended shortly after that. That night I got a long text message from Edward's phone, but it wasn't from Edward. It was from Lily. She must have grabbed his phone to get around my blocks. The message said I was destroying her daughter's life, that Martha didn't understand why they might lose their house, that she'd heard her parents fighting about money every night for weeks, that she was scared and confused and asking why Uncle Reese hated them. Lily said I used to be kind. I used to care about people. What happened to me? How did I become someone who'd hurt a child? I didn't respond, but I forwarded the message to my lawyer. He said it was more evidence of harassment and boundary violations. 2 days later, my lawyer called me with news about Edward's employment termination. The law firm wouldn't release details, but they did confirm that Edward's departure 6 years ago was involuntary and involved an ethics investigation. No charges were filed, no formal sanctions, but he'd been asked to resign. My lawyer had a contact at the firm who was willing to speak off the record, and apparently Edward had been caught billing personal expenses to client accounts. Not huge amounts, but enough to violate firm policy and ethics rules. He'd been given the option to resign quietly instead of being fired and potentially reported to the Bar Association. So Edward's a lawyer who committed billing fraud. And 6 years ago when that happened, my parents were sending thousands of dollars to Lily, presumably to help them through the crisis, which drained my parents' savings, which led to their financial problems, which led to me buying their house. And somewhere in all of that, I became the family scapegoat. I became the disappointment. Because they needed someone to blame for their collective financial disasters, and it sure as hell wasn't going to be Edward the lawyer or Lily the golden child. I asked my lawyer if we could use the information about Edward's termination in court. He said probably not directly in the eviction case, but definitely in the foreclosure case because it speaks to Edward's credibility and financial judgment. It explains why they needed the refinancing in the first place. It shows a pattern of financial impropriety that makes their claims of my bad faith less credible. Yesterday, Mom sent me a letter. An actual physical letter mailed to my apartment. She said Dad's chest pains had gotten worse and his doctor put him on new medication for stress. She said they were going to lose everything because of me. She said she didn't understand how I could be so cold. She said when I was little I was such a sweet child, always trying to make everyone happy, and now I was tearing the family apart. She said she'd always loved me even if she didn't show it right. She said parents make mistakes, but you don't destroy them for it. She said, please stop this before it's too late. Still no actual apology. Still no acknowledgement of what they did. Just guilt trips and manipulation and playing the victim. The eviction hearing is in 6 weeks. The foreclosure process is moving forward. My parents are running out of money for legal fees. Lily and Edward are facing the real possibility of losing their house. Martha's in the middle of all of it, and I'm sitting here in my paid-off apartment wondering when they're going to actually apologize instead of just trying to make me feel guilty for protecting myself. My lawyer asked me again yesterday if I was sure I wanted to see this through. He said we could still negotiate settlements. My parents could probably stay in the house if we modified the terms. Lily and Edward might avoid foreclosure if we worked out a buyout payment plan. I told him we see it through. No settlements. No compromises. They had years to treat me with respect. They had months to apologize properly. They've had every opportunity to make this right, and instead they fought me, harassed me, and tried to guilt me into backing down. So we proceed. January 15th, we go to court for the eviction. The foreclosure process continues. The trust restructuring stands. They wanted to shake me up with that birthday dinner. They succeeded, just not the way they planned. Final update. The eviction hearing happened 3 days ago, January 15th. I want to write this all down while it's still fresh because, honestly, I'm still processing everything that went down. My parents' lawyer tried every argument: duress, fraud, unconscionability, violation of implied family obligations. My lawyer systematically destroyed each one with documentation. The rental agreement was clear. The terms were explicit. My parents had been paying rent consistently for 5 years without complaint, until the moment I tried to enforce the lease violation clause. The judge asked their lawyer point blank if there was any evidence my parents didn't understand they were signing a lease agreement when they signed a lease agreement. Their lawyer couldn't produce anything convincing. The judge asked my parents directly if they'd read the agreement before signing. Dad admitted they had. Mom said yes, but they were desperate and I was their son, and they trusted me not to use it against them. The judge looked at her for a long moment and said, "That's not how legal contracts work. You don't sign binding agreements assuming the other party won't enforce them. Desperation doesn't invalidate a contract. Family relationships don't nullify lease terms." My lawyer presented the harassment documentation, the building security reports, the police report from when Dad tried to force his way past security, the recorded voicemails ranging from begging to threatening, the multiple instances of them bypassing building security to wait outside my door, the fake Instagram account using Martha's picture to manipulate me. The judge looked genuinely disturbed by that last one, asked Lily and Edward directly if they'd created a social media account impersonating their daughter to contact me. Lily tried to explain it was just a way to reach me since I'd blocked them everywhere else, and Martha really did miss me. The judge cut her off and said, using a minor child as a tool in an adult dispute was inappropriate regardless of the motivation. Then my lawyer brought up the birthday dinner. Their lawyer objected that it was irrelevant, but my lawyer argued it was directly relevant to establishing why the landlord-tenant relationship had deteriorated to the point of requiring eviction. The judge allowed it. I had to describe the whole dinner again, in court, on record, with my parents sitting right there listening. Every detail, the candles, Mom's comment about me disappointing everyone, Dad checking his watch, the empty gift box, Martha's rehearsed speech, the applause, Oscar's coordinated comment, Mom's final statement about wishing to be someone else. The judge asked my parents if this was accurate. They both admitted it was, but insisted it was meant as a joke. Tough love. They thought it would motivate me to engage more with the family. The judge asked them how humiliating someone publicly was. Supposed to make them want to spend more time with you. Neither of them had an answer. The judge said that regardless of intent, orchestrating a coordinated public humiliation of a family member and then being surprised when that person enforces legal boundaries was not a compelling defense against eviction for harassment. He ruled in my favor. 30 days to vacate. Final date, February 14th, Valentine's Day. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. My parents just sat there, Dad staring straight ahead, Mom crying silently. Their lawyer tried to request a stay pending appeal, but the judge said no, the evidence was overwhelming and an appeal was unlikely to succeed. We left the courthouse separately. I went back to work, tried to focus on my actual job. Around 4 that afternoon, building security called me. My parents were in the lobby again, but this time they weren't demanding to come up. They were asking if I'd be willing to come down and talk to them in the lobby. Public space, witnesses around, security right there. I thought about saying no, thought about just staying in my apartment and letting them sit there until they gave up. But something about the way the security guard described it made me curious. He said they looked defeated. Not angry, not manipulative, just completely broken. I went down. They were sitting on the lobby couch. Mom's eyes were red from crying. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in the past 3 months. When they saw me, Mom stood up but didn't approach, just stood there. Dad spoke first. He said they were sorry, really sorry. Not sorry they got caught or sorry they were facing consequences, but genuinely sorry for how they'd treated me. He said the birthday dinner was cruel and inexcusable, and they'd convinced themselves it was funny when it was just mean. He said they'd been terrible parents to me for years, and he didn't have a good excuse for it except that watching me succeed while they struggled had made him feel inadequate, and he'd taken that out on me instead of dealing with his own issues. Mom said she'd spent the entire court hearing listening to me describe that dinner and realizing how it must have felt. Hearing it in a courtroom with a judge looking at her with disgust made her understand what they'd actually done. She said she'd been telling herself for months that I was overreacting, but I wasn't. They'd humiliated me deliberately and publicly and then acted like I was wrong for being hurt. She said the reason they'd always been so critical of me was because I made them feel like failures. I was stable and successful and independent, and I'd gotten there without following any of their advice. Every time they looked at me, they were reminded that their own financial disasters were their fault, not bad luck. Lily had always needed them, had always struggled, and that made them feel useful. I never needed them after I was about 25, and that made them feel irrelevant. So they'd spent years tearing me down to make themselves feel better. Making me the disappointment meant they could avoid examining their own failures. And when Edward's career imploded because of his own unethical behavior, and Lily needed massive financial help, and then their own investments failed and they needed my help, it created this situation where I held all the power, and they resented me for it. The birthday dinner was Lily's idea, but they'd gone along with it enthusiastically because some part of them wanted to punish me for being in a position to help them, for being the successful one when they'd spent my whole life telling me I wasn't good enough. Dad said he understood why I was doing this now, that I had every legal right to evict them and to pursue the foreclosure and to restructure the trust. He said he didn't blame me. He said if someone had treated him the way they treated me, he'd do exactly the same thing. But he was asking me to consider that they'd lost already. They'd lost their son. They'd lost the respect of the court. They'd lost tens of thousands in legal fees they couldn't afford. They'd destroyed their relationship with me permanently. That was punishment enough. Could I please stop before they actually lost their home? I stood there in the lobby listening to all of this, and you know what I felt? Nothing. Just complete emptiness where all that anger used to be. I told them I'd think about it. That was all I could promise. Dad nodded. Mom asked if she could hug me, and I said no. She nodded, and they left. I went back upstairs and called my lawyer, told him about the conversation. He said it was up to me, but from a purely legal standpoint, we could push forward with everything, or we could negotiate a settlement that protected my interests while giving them a path to stability. I thought about it for 2 days, went through every option, and here's what I decided. The eviction stands. They have until February 14th to move out. But I'm not putting the house on the market immediately. I'm holding on to it for now. If they want to rent it back from me eventually under new terms with stricter lease conditions and higher rent, we can discuss that in a year. But they don't get to live there now. They don't get to stay in the home I saved for them while continuing to think of me as the disappointing son. They need to actually lose something. They need to understand consequences. For Lily and Edward, I offered them a buyout plan. I'll remove myself from their deed if they pay me $75,000 over 3 years, $25,000 per year in 3 annual installments. If they miss a payment, the deal's void and we go back to foreclosure proceedings. It's less than my full equity share, but more than they can comfortably afford. They'll struggle. That's the point. For Mom's trust, the restructuring stays in place permanently. She gets quarterly distributions for verified expenses only. She doesn't get unrestricted access to retirement money anymore. If she wants additional funds, she submits documentation explaining why. That's how it works from now on. I sent all of this through my lawyer in formal settlement offers. My parents accepted immediately. Lily and Edward took 3 days, but they accepted too. They didn't have a choice. Fighting would cost more in legal fees than just agreeing to my terms. My lawyer drafted everything. We signed this week. It's done. Yesterday, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Martha. The real Martha this time. You could tell from the message. She said her mom was crying a lot and they had to move to a smaller house soon, and everyone kept saying it was because of Uncle Reese. She asked if I hated them. She said she was sorry for reading that list at the dinner, and she didn't really think those things. Her mom had just told her to read it. I didn't respond. I blocked the number. Because here's the thing. Martha was 8 years old, and yes, she was used as a weapon, but she's also the daughter of people who thought weaponizing their child was acceptable. And I'm done with all of them. Lily sent a message through my lawyer, asking if we could talk directly now that everything was settled. I said no. Edward sent one too, saying he wanted to explain about his job situation years ago, that there was more to it than I knew. I said I didn't care. Mom sent another letter. This one actually had the words, "I'm sorry" in it. multiple times. She said she understood if I never wanted to speak to them again, but she hoped someday I'd give them a chance to have a relationship with me again. She said they were moving to a smaller rental across town. She said Dad's health was still concerning, but they were managing. She said she loved me even though she'd done a terrible job of showing it. I haven't responded to that either. My cousin Oscar reached out on Facebook again asking if I was okay and saying he'd heard about the court outcome from other family members. Apparently, the extended family is split on whether I was justified or whether I went too far. Oscar said he thought I did what I had to do and he respected it even if it was harsh. I thanked him for that. So where do we stand now? My parents are packing up the house I bought for them and moving out by February 14th. Lily and Edward are scrambling to come up with $25,000 by next January and terrified of what happens if they can't. Mom's retirement money is controlled by me indefinitely. They're all financially stressed, dealing with consequences, and I'm sitting here in my paid-off apartment with complete control over my own life. Is it satisfying? Kind of. But also not really. I thought it would feel better than this. I thought I'd feel vindicated or triumphant or something. Instead, I just feel tired. And done. Completely done with all of them. Someone in the comments on my first post said I was going to regret nuking my family relationships. Maybe I will eventually. But right now, all I feel is relief that they're out of my life. Relief that I don't have to deal with their criticism anymore. Relief that I don't have to wonder when the next humiliation is coming. The birthday dinner happened 4 months ago. In those 4 months, I've evicted my parents, put my sister's house at risk, restructured my mother's trust, spent probably $40,000 in legal fees, and permanently destroyed every family relationship I had. And you know what? I'd do it all again. Because they're the ones who decided a coordinated public humiliation was appropriate family bonding. They're the ones who turned me into the family scapegoat to avoid dealing with their own failures. They're the ones who took my help for years while treating me like garbage. I just enforced the contracts they signed. I just protected myself from people who'd proven they'd hurt me for entertainment. They wanted to know what happened to the sweet kid who always tried to make everyone happy. That kid learned that making everyone else happy meant being miserable himself. That kid grew up and got therapy and realized he didn't owe anyone his dignity. They wanted me to be someone else? Congratulations. They got their wish. I'm someone who doesn't tolerate being treated like garbage anymore. I'm someone who enforces boundaries. I'm someone who protects himself. I'm someone they created by treating me the way they did. The eviction notice said 30 days. The birthday dinner said I disappoint everyone I meet. Turns out they were both right. I do disappoint people who expect me to accept mistreatment, and they do have 30 days to get out of my house. Full circle, I guess.